Hi, everyone. I'm Sean Malott with the Central Florida Development Council. Today, I'm joined by Brandon Clark, president of the Ruthvens, Central Florida's premier warehouse real estate specialist. With decades of expertise in industrial, manufacturing, and distribution spaces, the Ruthvens have built a portfolio of over 4.5 million square feet. As president, Brandon leads the company's operations, development, leasing, financing, and overall strategy. He joined the Ruthvens in 2018 as vice president, following a successful tenure as vice president corporate banker at JP Morgan. With a strong background in finance and real estate, he plays a pivotal role in driving the company's growth. Brandon, welcome, and thank you for joining us today.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Glad you can be here with us today. And for those, who may not be familiar, can you tell us a little bit about the Ruthvens and what makes the Ruthvens unique in the space here in industrial real estate?
Sure. So the Ruthvens as a company was started in 1957 by my wife's grandfather. His name was Joe P. Ruthven. He married. He grew up in South Carolina, but was married a girl from Lakeland, and they ended up moving here to open a tire store. He had been in the tire business, and that's what he moved to Lakeland to do. So he got a piece of land on Memorial Boulevard, and physically built his first tire store with his partner. And they opened that, got that going, and several years into that, in the early to mid '60s. Got an inbound from one of his tire suppliers that needed space to store tires in Central Florida. And he started looking for space and couldn't find anything. So he decided, well, why don't I just build it? So he built it twice as big, leased out the other half to another company called Bird Machinery. And then both needed to grow, built another one, expanded the warehouse, and then kind of kept going from there. So now, 68 years later, we've just kind of been building one at a time and built a portfolio of 92 total warehouses, all in Polk County.
Amazing. And how did you know you wanted to get into real estate?
So I really didn't have much of a background in real estate. I did an undergrad business degree from UNC Chapel Hill, and went into finance and was in banking in Atlanta and then Winter Park, Orlando area for about 11 years total, and was really enjoying that. My wife's family obviously had been in the business for decades and was looking towards generational transition and kind of who was going to lead the company going forward and different ways to do that. And I got asked to be a part of that. So it was really kind of one of those things that was not a plan, wasn't on the bingo card, but it's been a great thing for me and for us and our family.
I mean, it sounds like it was meant to be, and really a good fit. And from what I've observed, I mean, definitely you fit, the match. I think of kind of that next iteration of what the Ruthvens is to the community. So
yeah, it's been great. So we've been in Lakeland for about 7 years now, and have been kind of executing everything on the business side and the family side.
Yeah, fantastic. And so, talking about the footprint of the Ruthvens and, in your industrial properties, you're very much so in Polk County, deep in Polk County. Why is that?
So, some of it's just the way it started. And as we started building in the 60s, 70s, it was really, I-4 wasn't as significant of a thing. It wasn't this master plan back to 1957 of the logistics infrastructure and highways and all that, coalescing and converging right across Polk County. It was really more just where the family was from and had roots, and serving that community. And then over time, obviously, those logistical and transportation infrastructure items came together, and Polk County has become a premier distribution and warehouse location for the state of Florida and really beyond, and across the southern part of Georgia. So it was really to some extent kind of right place, right time, and then just leveraging the base and the strategy that we had going.
Yeah, I mean, when you say right fit, right time, I mean, that's really true. Again, just the growth of the e-commerce in this market that's been kind of really played in well to to being in this this space. How has e-commerce impacted your business?
E-commerce has had a big impact in the warehouse business in general. There's different pieces of the warehouse business. There's kind of the really big ones that you see, the 500,000, million footers, like the Amazon style facilities. That's not really what we do, but and that's really more of the world that e-commerce is utilizes from a space standpoint. But at the same time, this morning I had a meeting with one of our tenants who's started in 11,000 square feet, has been in an 18,200 square foot space for the last 4 years, and now is expanding to 42,000 square feet. And they're an e-commerce based company that fulfills and sells and distributes out women's clothes out of warehouses here in Lakeland. So 100% e-commerce, and just on a smaller scale. So I would say in general, e-commerce has been the largest driver of absorbing large scale warehouses.
Okay.
But even on the smaller side, there's a lot of companies that are growing at pretty, aggressive rates due to just the trends in e-commerce kind of pre-COVID and accelerated, post-COVID.
Okay. All right. Interesting. So when you're considering new locations, what do you look for when you're looking for a location to build a new space?
So a lot of it is just the physical location relative to roads and infrastructure, and trying to make sure that it's got the right attributes that that you can't fix. What are the items that that you can't fix, and it's the physical location. So that matters a lot.
Okay.
The other pieces are, in addition to roads, are just water, sewer, those sorts of things that no one really thinks about, but are becoming, more and more scarce and complicated resources in general, but in Florida, but specifically in Central Florida. And then lastly, I would say is demographics, and making sure that it's in a spot where people would want to go to work and make sense.
Right.
But for us, it's been also looking at it in the context of what's strategic and helps our operating business.
Right.
And the way we've built our business is really trying to keep the portfolio of properties relatively close, so that we can help companies do what I just walked through, of that one that has grown and expanded across now 3 buildings. And that type of thing only really works when it's buildings that are relatively close to each other, so that you're not having to change staffing and
Right.
And labor disruption by moving to a different town, different county.
I know one of the things that we find really valuable in the economic development environment, especially from the CFDC, but also our other economic development partners, is really the Ruthvens provide almost like an industrial incubator to businesses in the area. One of the things that we've heard through your team state is about growth, right? If a company comes into a space and originally needs say 10,000 square feet, but then they want to grow to that next level, you provide a lot of flexibility for growing businesses, and it's definitely we're very appreciative of that in our market. But one of the things that I've noticed is you have a variety of tenants. You have could be kind of a variety of businesses that operate within the box of the real estate property. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, sure. It's probably one of the pieces that's most interesting about the day-to-day of our job, is just the variety of companies that we get to work with, and thus people that we get to work with. But yeah, it's all over the place. I mean, we've got like plumbers and HVAC companies that are in smaller spaces of ours, down to 1,000 square feet. We've got e-commerce and retail distribution that happens out of it. We've got large Fortune 50 companies that operate in kind of different different ways through our buildings. We've got manufacturers. We've got a rum distillery and blending operation that's in one of our buildings. So there's some really neat different things that can happen inside of a warehouse, and it's not just racks of product and pallets that are being shipped around all the time. It's all different kinds of things, and so it's fun to see what companies can do and leverage that space into, and just the creative niches that exist in the world that you wouldn't otherwise think of.
Yeah, and I think people would really be fascinated if they could go and see all the businesses that are happening within your facilities. I mean, it provides just a wealth of employment, for the county and the area here, because of all the businesses and the major economic impact that is, happening in that, that 4 million plus, square feet that are here in this market. So it's impressive.
Yeah. So right now we're up to a little over 360 different tenants, the companies that are operating across the buildings. We're at 92 buildings. Most of our buildings have more than one tenant in them. But our clients are some of them have just a couple of employees, and we've got a few clients that have 150, 200 plus employees per site. So when we estimate it across our whole portfolio, the companies operating in the warehouses that we own, it's well over 4,000 employees, that all work here in Lakeland and around Polk County.
Yeah, again, it seems like you're very invested in their success as well. As I've seen, we've highlighted various businesses within your facilities. And what's the most rewarding part of working with those tenants?
Yeah, I think it's really trying to be more than just a landlord to them. It's how can we come alongside them and help them grow. What are their goals? What are they here? Why did they come to Lakeland, and what can we do leveraging kind of our history here, connections, relationships with other companies in our portfolio or vendors or otherwise, and really try to facilitate that. It's something that Joe P. and Greg Ruthven have done an extraordinary job of over the 68 years that we've been doing this, and it's something that we continue to keep as an item that we're very focused on as a team. And then that really just, Joe P's philosophy was, if they win, we win. Yeah. And so if, whatever we can do to help them win, at a minimum, they stay in business and thrive. And at a maximum, they grow like crazy and they need more space, which is obviously a win. So it's their business growing, our business growing. That's a win for both of us and for the region. And so those are really the things that are kind of most fulfilling, is when you can have, make a little connection, whether it's to a banker, a potential client, something that just, that's a little unique and special that can help them grow.
Yeah, and you see that. It's very tangible, right? You can see it. You can see their, the way they utilize the space.
Right.
And it's very tangible for you. So can you take us behind the scenes of maybe like a recent development project, potentially, obstacles that came up, and maybe how you handled those situations too?
Yeah, that's one thing in this business is there's nothing that's super straightforward and easy about what we do, and most in Central Florida. A unique piece is that there's so many wetlands and other kind of geographic constraints that most of the easy sites have already been developed. So now it's you got to get a little creative. We just finished a building in that's at the corner of Drainfield and County Line, which is kind of like a main street in warehouse world in Central Florida.
On the edge of two counties.
Yep.
Right.
And that one had issues with sewer. We had to extend the sewer. It's kind of a joint development agreement for over a mile to get the full capacity that was needed there. We had some soil issues that we had to overcome, and then we had hurricanes that kind of blew through right as we were finishing up the building. So all of those things just present a different challenge every day. Right before I walked in, there was another a little challenge with that project that we're dealing with. So really it's about just having a good team, having a team of people, contractors, our staff, and our field team that really have have our best interest in mind, and are really trying to get the end goal accomplished and get it get the project done, obviously on time, on budget, but just done in the right way, and working with all of our partners, city, county, whoever it is as well, to just make sure that we're doing what we need to do.
I mean, with the amount of square feet that you have a lot of partners, be it, municipalities, county, utilities, a wide variety of partners that are involved in that. And so then how does the local economy influence your development activity?
The local economy is really what drives the usage and how leased the warehouses are. And so if you've got a bunch of vacancy, you're not going to build something new. And so having vibrancy and companies coming to and locating in Polk and Lakeland, specifically for the majority of our footprint, is really important, because it keeps that supply demand piece in balance. And at the same time, we're trying to, through conversations that we're having all the time with our tenants, we sit in a really neat position of having a unique visibility into what's happening in the local economy, because it to some extent our clients and their businesses that operate in our buildings are kind of a great sample set of different types of industries and size companies and how things are going locally. And so usually we can tell a lot about that, and we use that information to inform when it feels right to continue growing. And
so tell me about that. Is that something that you're tracking on your end? How you monitor that piece?
Yeah, it's some of it's a little empirical. I mean, obviously we have data that we use, but more of it's just through knowing them all individually and as people. And so just kind of our team, whether it's our leasing agents with Matt and Jake and Alex, or it's our facilities guys that are spending time in the buildings with the tenants and helping them with a roof leak or some issue that pops up. And the fact that we're the one doing all of that, that we do the property management and we do the leasing and all of that's integrated, gives us a touch point that's deeper with each of those companies, and it helps us to really kind of know what's going on before some of those trends might become evident.
Yeah, interesting. We may have to talk about that side.
Yeah.
So, are there any upcoming projects you're particularly excited about?
Yeah, so we've always got a couple things going on. So we have 3 buildings that are getting ready to get started. 2 in a multi-building development in Auburndale up by Florida Poly. It's on Pace Road, just one exit off of I-4 on the Parkway. And that'll be kind of a two-phase development. The first phase will be 2 buildings. Totals about 265,000 square feet across them. And those buildings are going to be designed to be very multi-tenant. Lots of companies, the smallest sizes will go down to about 5,000 square feet. And the biggest space will be 165,000 square feet. But there will be a bunch of tenants in that park. And we're excited to bring that to Auburndale and to bring that to the Florida Poly area inside the Innovation District as just a way to allow some smaller companies to be able to land and start growing, in that area. And then after that, we've got probably later this summer we'll really break ground in earnest on a 84,000 square foot building down by the airport in Lakeland. Just kind of rounds out a business park development that we have down there. And that one will actually be, that'll want to be targeting kind of the small to mid-sized, space sizes as well. So, both, we're seeing we have a lot of we have about 800,000 square feet of warehouse space up towards Florida Poly. None of it over on the Auburndale side, but we're seeing that area see a lot of positive inflows and activity kind of as Orlando gets tighter. And then County Line has really become County Line Drainfield area has really become an extension of Tampa. And so what's nice about those is that they're close enough to where, a lot of companies consider expanding. We've got actually one company right now that's expanding from down by the airport on Drainfield to North Cumbie over on the eastern side of Lakeland, and then a separate company that's doing the exact same expansion thing but the opposite way from one to the other. So for us, there's synergy to those sides, but we're seeing kind of different drivers that are driving driving activity in those areas.
Well, we're definitely interested and excited about your entrance into the Central Florida Innovation District as well, and you kind of being on that eastern side of the Parkway, from a logistics, or logistical location. Definitely think there's going to be a lot of activity for that development. I think there's groups out there now that are looking for a location that are probably finding a Ruthven space on Cumbie Road, in essence, or maybe another area along the Parkway.
Yeah, so we've had several companies over the last couple of years that are in our spaces because of Florida Poly, and just wanting to either, in one case they have there's one company that has an employee that used to be a professor at Poly and was drawn here because of the research piece. In some cases, it's getting access to the talent pool and some of the research that's happening. But I totally agree. I think right now they're landing where they can land because there's space that exists. But over the next couple of years, a lot of those companies will choose to move out towards Florida Poly and start to grow inside the innovation district.
Yeah, and really, again, your spaces, your buildings provide a wide variety of uses. And again, I think you'll probably see a different type of product or user that's going into that area there. So we're very excited for what that will bring in the future here. So I know that the community involvement is very important to the Ruthvens. You're involved in local organizations in the area. So why is that helpful to the company?
Yeah, so I mean, in general, that just kind of stems back to Greg, Joe P, and Joel, and their desire to give back to the community that gave so much to us. It's like as we've talked about, so much of our growth is facilitated by companies growing and either moving here or growing here. Either way, we're just in that sense giving back to the community that gave us the ability to keep doing what we're doing. So I think that's really the main driver is just giving back when you've received. But at the same time, it's really kind of what makes Lakeland a special and unique place, and it really. When you've got lots of individuals and lots of companies that Publix is the quintessential example of just kind of concentric circles of philanthropy, and the impact that's had through generations of the family side and the company side, and and smaller companies like ours, I think view that as a standard that we'll never hit, but we can, in terms of total impact, but we can endeavor to do what we can in our own way.
Yeah, well, I think people that are living in the community, invest in the community. Again, that just provides such a benefit to the area, and great to be able to network and connect, but also just being living in the community makes such a vast impact, especially when it comes to the corporate environment.
Yeah,
so we definitely appreciate the Ruthvens and the involvement that your company has, and again, leaders within your company, past leaders as well. Greg Ruthven is a former chair of our organization, and again has meant a lot to our organization. So
yeah, no, and even Greg Ruthven, Joel Ruthven, and Joe P, our founder, all have had very large scale impacts on lots of different organizations around Polk County. But also the rest of our team is really into doing what we can to serve, and some of it's in creative ways, and some of it's just supporting some of the bigger organizations. But it's also something that has been really neat to see over the last couple of years as our team has grown, how excited they get by being able to give back, and and really kind of what it does to provide some fun energy and kind of team building items for our company.
Yeah, that's great. So let's shift gears a little bit and let's talk about trends in the industry. So what major trends are shaping industrial real estate, and how is the Ruthvens adapting to those trends?
Sure. Yeah, I think there's different kind of macro trends that are impacting industrial real estate, warehouse, development and leasing. Some of the big ones post COVID were e-commerce, which we talked about. Another one was onshoring of inventory. There were so long of a period of time where supply chains were really disrupted. Companies were very used to being able to place an order. Something gets put on a boat and it shows up on a certain time. Well, that all got messed up during COVID. So then what it meant was a lot of companies decided that they just needed to take inventory when they could and store it somewhere. So that drove absorption of increased warehouse space. We've had a lot of companies in our portfolio that needed to lease either overflow space or grow their main footprint to solve for that need.
Okay.
In some cases, that's normalizing back, but in many cases, there's a lot of companies that have taken a view of, even though the supply chain globally has gotten a little more predictable, they still want to control their own destiny a little bit more, and it's worthwhile to have a little bit more space to be able to have inventory levels at a at a point where they can where they're not as dependent on suppliers. And the other thing I would say is we're seeing a big trend towards increased power use. And it's for all different kinds of things. We're seeing a really large increase in companies that are air conditioning their warehouses, not just for kind of product needs like humidity control, which was kind of the historic main reason. Now a lot of it is labor competitiveness.
Okay, for the workforce.
Yeah. So just to be able to, if Amazon's buildings air conditioning, Home Depot's buildings air conditioned, Lowe's, Ace, et then then you need to be providing a competitive competitive environment for people to work in. And so it's obviously not everybody, but it's definitely a trend that drives power usage. You take that together with more electric forklifts and other items. Even if you don't add in autonomous or robotics in a warehouse, there's just so many more elements that are drawing power, even if you're not a manufacturing user. So those are trends that we're seeing across the board, and we're starting to see companies thus need larger power in their spaces and are utilizing them in different ways.
Well, there's definitely a lot of competition for the workforce. So I think that being in an environment where that attracts labor to facilities, I think is huge. And so, how is automation and AI affecting the industry? Are you seeing much of an impact at this point?
Yeah. So on automation, I would say, the initial impacts were for the very large users, and they had, budgets to whether it's Amazon's kind of the one everyone thinks about and knows about of kind of being relatively early into lots of different robotics and automation in the warehouse. But what's happening now is the cost of the equipment and the cost of delivering that is starting to come down to a level where more and more companies are able to take advantage of it. I wouldn't say that AI and automation for a small user has started to become a really significant piece of their operation at this point, but it's clearly going to. And I think that, as companies navigate over the next several years, the actual applications and how AI gets built into different systems that they use, even basic stuff like like Word or
Sure,
like
yeah.
Microsoft
Right.
related things, and then more intensive applications or specific ones around like CRM, like Salesforce, implementation of different AIs and
Right.
stuff to help to help the sales cycle or whatever else, and then fulfillment sitting in the middle. I mean, there's clearly it's
Like inventory
there's
management.
There's so
Yeah.
many applications to
Right.
make it, and I think as that gets more common, more democratized, you'll see a lot of smaller companies being able to take advantage of that.
Yeah, definitely. Some of the bigger companies in our market have really pioneered some of those technologies, and now you're seeing it, kind of spin into other smaller companies as well.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
It's there's a lot of change happening
Yeah.
in the market right now.
One of the things we're seeing there too is, for over a decade, larger companies have been using and viewing Polk County as a way to aggregate their statewide warehouse space and footprint to have one larger facility in Polk rather than 5 facilities around the state, and they can get inventory controls and same day distribution to the entire state of Florida all out of Lakeland. And what we're seeing happen over maybe the last 5 to 7 years is that trend is starting to happen on across smaller companies. So a company may have had 20,000 square feet in Polk County, forever, kind of supporting their Tampa and Orlando operation, but they had a facility in Miami and one in Jacksonville and maybe the Panhandle, and then they'll consider consolidating all of that here and maybe 50 or 60,000 square feet using technology and using some of the inventory, control stuff that then allow them to more efficiently distribute out of one central place rather than kind of spread out all over the state.
Yeah, I definitely think there's cost efficiency in that, and then also from a workforce perspective, again, it's really thinking about from an efficiency standpoint in that regard. So, what advice would you give to someone who's looking to start a career in industrial real estate?
I think the biggest thing is to find someone or a team that really knows what they're doing and learn the details from people that have done it for a long time. You can drive around the industrial areas in Polk County, and you can look at a warehouse and it might look simple, but there's a lot of it's 4 walls and it's a rectangle, but there's a lot of detail that goes into it, and
Right.
And there's a lot of different decisions that different developers make for different reasons, and so I think it's really having that. You can't substitute the experience, and so I think really finding a team that you can dig in on that. For me, that's been obviously very very important, and my job is really to have our team going forward benefit from all the lessons that we've learned on the prior 92 buildings, so that building 93 and 94 and 95 are even better and serve tenants better. So and then other than that, I mean, it really is I'm biased, but it is a very interesting space because the physical warehouse and industrial spaces allow for such a broad, wide variety of uses that it really future-proofs a lot of kind of a real estate use, over time. So it's hard to forecast exactly what kind of 20, 30, 40 years from now is going to look like in terms of demand trends and what people are going to want and all that. But what's really nice is you can take any one of our spaces and do absolutely anything on the inside of it, and so
Right.
that flexibility is very different than some other real estate classes that I think just has a good long-term trajectory and long-term trend.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I think probably from finding a quality team, it's probably sage advice for really any industry. Someone that's new to real estate or otherwise.
Right.
Thinking about being a part of a quality team. So what's next for the Ruthvens?
So we're plotting away on some growth of a couple new buildings. 350,000 square feet over the next 12 to 18 months. We plan to deliver, and then we've got a pipeline of about 750,000 square feet behind that that we can develop. That's all in Polk County. The one new wrinkle and piece and kind of adjacent strategy is we're about to we just closed on some land in Greensboro, North Carolina, to start a small version of what we do here up there.
Okay.
Which is where about a third of our of the Ruthven family is from and based, and it also has very similar geographic trends, population growth, and also just how it sits amongst kind of amongst and between Raleigh, Charlotte, and the broader Triad area. So that's exciting. I think it's something that Kay, who's Greg and Joelle, who was Greg and Joelle's middle sister, she lived and had her whole professional career. Family still lives in Greensboro, and she had been trying to convince Greg and Joe P to give Greensboro a try for a couple decades. So we finally feel like we found the right time to do it.
Just ready to make that jump now.
Yeah, ready to make that jump. So I think that'll be a fun project, and we've got a nice site there that is conveniently shares the same interchange as Publix's 2 million square foot distribution center. So
there you go. Right?
we
it's connection,
decided a little
right?
bit of
He's still local connection.
Don't reinvent the wheel.
So where can people learn more about your projects and get in touch with you?
Sure. So our website is a great place to start, especially if you're looking for warehouse space. That's your spot to go see what's available. Both the properties that we own, and then we also, through Alex on our team, represent about 1.5 million square feet of additional warehouse space, all in Polk County, that you can find through our website. And then obviously social media, mostly Instagram and LinkedIn are the main channels that we use. But those are fun ways to stay in touch too.
Excellent. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us today?
No, I think we're obviously we're working on this this project in Greensboro, which I think will be very exciting. But the our core portfolio, our core business, and our core focus will always be here in Polk County. And our view of the economic trends, the net in migration to the state and in migration to Central Florida and then to Polk, is undisputed. And our view is that it'll obviously there will be ebbs and flows, there will be recessions, there will be things that we have to all as a community deal with. But I think that there's really great strategy at a big level, and there's really good trends to kind of support growth continuing positively in Polk County, and we plan to continue to support that.
Excellent. That's what we like to hear.
Yeah.
Well, Brandon, thank you for joining us today on the CFDC Investor Member Spotlight. Again, appreciate having you spend time with us today.
You got it. Thanks.